in the pines where the sun never shines. Now, Wiley lived with his mama at the edge of the swamp down east where I grew up. There were all kinds of tales about strange goings on in the swamp. There'd be lights floating around. People would see boats just going all by themselves. Nobody went in the swamp, especially not alone, and especially not at night. Wiley and his mama lived in a small house. She was a strong, smart lady. Everybody from thereabouts came to her. Why, she could cure your headache with a cup of chamomile tea. She could find your husband by sleeping with rose petals under your pillow. Everybody liked Wiley's mama. One morning, though, Wiley's mama woke up. Some folks said she had second sight. She'd been born in Jamaica, and she did seem to know a lot of things nobody else knew. So when she got up, she said, "Wiley, honey, I don't want you going alone in the swamp today. Be sure you take the dogs, and be sure you come home before dark." "Yes, ma'am," he said. He was a good boy. He did everything his mama told him. So he and the dogs went a lollygagging on down the road. A boogity boogity, boogity boogity, boogity boogity boogity. Boogity boogity, boogity boogity, boogity boogity boogity. He got to the swamp, he got in his boat, he was poling around, and he liked to look for little treasures of this and maybe pick Mama's strange looking flower, one of those them Venus flytraps that really eat flies. That's a real thing, you know. And he didn't notice, but it got later and later, and darker and darker. And then he realized the dogs had run off. Why, they were probably chasing some possum or a coon way back in the swamp. Those raccoons loved the dogs. He decided he'd better get ready and go. He got his gunny sack, because back then people didn't use plastic. They didn't have it, didn't need it. He was putting his toys and his sharp knife in there, and he was just turning to go back to the boat when he heard it. Behind him, a branch went crack. It made his blood run cold. Something was in the swamp, and it was coming for him. Wiley whirled around, but not in time, because behind him he heard somebody was walking in the quicksand. And there, out of the dust and the gloom and the dark and that Spanish moss, out of the shadows jumped the hairy man. And the hairy man was taller than that tree, and he had long teeth covered with green moss, and he was opening that mouth ready to take Wiley with him. Wiley just stood there with his knees shaking. I mean, he was really a lot smaller than the hairy man, and he started thinking, Mama always says, you can be strong, use your mind to be strong, and he got an idea. He said, "Oh, you must be you must be the hairy man. I have heard tell of you. There's lots of stories. And I heard tell that you can actually do a magic whistle." Well, when the hairy man heard that, he puffed up with pride. He pursed his lips and he got ready and he gave a loud. Wiley didn't hear nothing, but that's because it was a silent whistle. And you know who heard the whistle. It was his dogs, and they came and running. And they were running, and the hairy man turned tail, and he was deathly afraid of dogs, so he turned tail and he started running just as fast as he could, and all of a sudden he tripped over a log, and slap, he fell into the quicksand and disappeared completely from sight. Wiley was loving on his dogs and thanking him, and he couldn't get out of there fast enough. He got off to the road and he starts going on home, boogity boogity, boogity boogity, boogity boogity boogity. And when he got home, there was his mama. Now, I don't know about your mama, But my mom's 96 and she still has the look and knows things. You know what I mean? And Wiley's mama was extra specially knowing things. She took one look at Wiley and she said, "You have been in the swamp. I told you not to go in the swamp." So Wiley starts a stammering and telling her the whole story, and she was just a listening and a listening. He said, "Mama, you don't need to worry. I beat that hairy man, and he is now in the quicksand." And that's when she looked at him again. She said, "Wiley, you can't get the hairy man in the swamp. The hairy man is the hairy man. We got to get ready, because he is going to be coming for us." Wiley was feeling so bad. He and the dogs helped do everything. They lit big bonfires around the porch of the house. And Mama got everything set, and then she said something real strange. She said, "Wiley, go out to the pig pen and get that new cute little piggy that we just had last week." Wiley thought that was really strange. Mama didn't usually let him carry around the piggies. So he went in and he was getting all muddy, but he loved it. Piggy was going, and he came and brought him to Mama. "What you want me to do, Mama? Can we play?" Mama said, "No, I told you the hairy man was coming. We got to get ready. You take the piggy and put him in the house, in your bed." In his bed? Wiley couldn't believe his ears. Mama never let the piggies come in the house. And in his bed? Ooh, he was so excited. He went running in there with the piggy, and Piggy was oinking and oinking, and he put the piggy under the covers, and Piggy just loved it. He kind of went fast asleep like a good baby. And then Wiley went racing out. He says, "Mama, why are we putting the piggy in the bed?" She said, "Wiley, I want you to go and hide." "I'm not hiding, Mama. I am going to help fight the hairy man." "No," she said, "honey. We are going to fight him being smart and not have to even be strong. Now you go and hide, and if I need you, I'll call you." Wiley grumbled and went on in there, and the dogs went in and got real quiet. It got later and later, darker and darker, and the velvet night came in and settled on the swamp and that little teeny-tiny house. And Mama was sitting on the front porch, just a-rocking, just a-listening, and then she heard it. A sound that made her blood run cold. Something walking in the quicksand. Then, out of the darkness, she saw the hairy man. He jumped up out and straight, ready to grab her. Ah! She started screaming, and then she got quiet. She looked up at that hairy man, and he said, "You better be afraid of me. I'm going to bring the lightning down and burn this house and that young'un of yours. You better take time." Wiley's mama just smiled and rocked, and she said, "You know, Wiley's a good boy. And, you know, hairy man, I think I got plenty of sweet milk to put out that fire." One of her special conjures. Then the hairy man said, "Well, then you better be careful, because I'm going to bring the bugs and the locusts and all the sounds and thunder in the heavens and get you both." Wiley's mama said, "Okay, hairy man, I tell you what. I'm getting a wee bit tired and parched. I want some tea, some sweet tea. I tell you, I'm going to let you leave. You can have what you want, but you got to leave and never come back and never bother us again." The hairy man said, "Well, I want that young'un of yours. He was so wily and so scary. I want him, but not the dogs." Well, she just shook her head yes, and she said, "Now remember, a promise is a promise." The hairy man could hardly believe his luck. He was going to get Wiley and put him in a gunny sack and take him home, because he wanted somebody to play with. He was lonely. So he reached reached down in. He could not even fit in the door. He kind of scrunched his head in, scrunched that long paw in. He was feeling around because, while his mama had all the candles and lights out, he felt the furniture, he felt the table, and then he felt the bed. He knew that he was going to get a hold of Wiley and take him on out of there and never have to come back again. So he reached in and he snatched the blankets and everything in the bed and stuffed it in the sack and ran outside, but he stopped because then he realized it was not heavy enough for a boy and it was oinking. That baby was not happy. The hairy man turns around and he's shaking the bag and out comes the little piggy. He says, "What are you trying to pull? You are tricking me. That is not your young'un, Wiley. I demand my promise." Wiley's mama said, "Wiley is not the young'un you're going to get. You said the young'un in the bed, right?" "Oh, that's a young piglet." Ooh. Ooh. When the hairy man heard that, he was so mad. He was stomping up and down. The steam was blowing out his ears. He thought, "I want the young'un. I want the young'un." While his mama said, "You forget, a promise is a promise. Now you take that little piggy and don't you harm him because he's a pet and take him on out of here. And don't you forget either. You promised you would never come back." The hairy man was so mad he couldn't even see straight. He grabbed Piggy, put him in the gunny sack, and he disappeared slowly into the deep, dark waters and the deep, dark, hanging moss, never to be seen or heard from again. Wiley came out, and he and Mama and the doggies were just a-hugging and a-hugging and a-hugging. They knew Piggy would probably run away and run back home. Wiley said, "Mama, you are so smart. We didn't even have to lift a finger to fight that hairy man." She said, "That's right, baby. That's right. That's the way to live your life right." And that's what they did. There on the edge of the swamp, folks still came. Folks still loved her in all of her special ways. But everybody made sure, especially Wiley, not to walk down that road too close to the swamp, just in case the hairy man was waiting for some company. Just waiting for some company like you. And that's an old Southern folktale called Wiley